Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Torch Tales, Stories Behind the Hood. I'm your host, Frank Vargas, aka Traveling Frankie. You know the deal. One more guest, one more conversation. Today I have a friend, Brian Logaglio.
Yep, very good.
Whoa, thank you. So not only are we going to learn who he is, what he does, why is he in the welding industry, but we're going to learn all that together. So Brian, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, no problem.
It's around 9 o'clock in the morning, and we're kind of awake, so you guys will be the judge of that.
Yeah.
Brian, so before we touch on what you do, what you've done, and where are you now, let's start with where we are now. Mm-hmm. What area are we in?
We're on the west coast of Florida.
Which is New Port Richey, I guess?
Yeah, we're Port Richey, New Port Richey.
Got
like not a whole lot of trade stuff around here.
Got it. All right. And this is where you call home, right?
Yeah, like we're a suburb of Tampa, St. Pete area.
I see.
Most people that live here filter into those areas for work.
Gotcha. And how long have you been here?
I mean, really past 15 years.
15.
I'm more from Pinellas, a little bit south of here, but
okay.
Cost of living.
We get it.
Moves up, so you got to move out.
Right, up, out.
Yeah.
I get it. But where are you from?
Palm Harbor, Florida, Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So born and raised pretty much in Florida.
Yep.
And I know you've traveled quite a bit.
Sure.
Who was Brian as a kid? What were you into when you were growing up?
Oh, I played hockey.
Really? Here in Florida?
Yeah, roller.
Go figure.
Mighty Ducks pushed a big
okay.
Roller hockey movement.
Gotcha.
Played that as a kid, big into sports. Never was really a great student.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you say? I was a typical kid.
Yeah. I get it. That was my MO. There was no superstar grade getter here,
no.
So that was not me at all. Now, growing in Florida, mm-hmm. and as a kid, once you are in high school, did you have a vision of what you wanted to do already? Had you been exposed to the welding industry yet?
No. When I was in the high school age, I was really big into cars, and I knew I didn't want to be a mechanic.
Okay.
And there was always an idea in my head of being a welder or welding or fabricating for cars and stuff like that. And some of the guys I built cars with, we got a shop together.
Okay.
And a couple bays down was a machine shop, and he had a couple welders that he employed. And once I saw that, I was like, every other word out of my mouth, that guy was like, "Hey man, can I weld?"
Really?
And then
so the spark got you.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
He ended up making aviation parts for the government for a military application, and I finally got him to agree to hire me, push a broom around.
Gotcha.
And eventually I bugged him enough to let me weld, and he had me work, and then I ended up working myself up into being a welder for him at a very young age.
Really? So what processes were you using back then?
There I was just TIG welding. It was aerospace. We made these covers for F-18.
So your first crack at welding, you are making parts for aerospace.
Yes.
That's not everyone's start.
No, but I practiced with their guys, and I got up to, and these were very simple, non-critical to flight. They were covers.
Gotcha.
They were aerospace, sure, but it could have been a boat cover.
Right. Yeah.
But F-18 parts, they were covers for their radar systems.
Really?
Don't really know a whole lot about it.
Yeah.
Just,
you were on a need-to-know basis. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so once you got exposed, now you're working at a very young age, and you are welding.
Yeah.
Was there a gap between back then and now where you were not in welding, or once you started that, it kind of just kept growing from there?
My whole adult life, that's all I've done.
Really?
So once I was in that shop, I thought I found what I was going to do the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Economy collapse. Yeah. Government contracts collapse. The platform that we were making parts for, they discontinued, and they went to, I think, the F-22. I don't,
Yeah.
Not my purview, so I don't really know.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. So he didn't have me work, and I ended up being one of his last welders, so I ended up going to welding school. The owner of that company knew the local welding instructor, and the guy would come down and hang out.
What welding school was this?
P-Tech down in Clearwater.
Okay.
And every time I'd see, his name was Jerry. Every time Jerry would come in, like, you really need to go to school. And I'm like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I wanted to.
Of course.
So, economy collapsed, saw the writing on the wall, went to school, and I thought I'd just get better at what I was doing. So I would just continue doing what I was doing for another company. While I was there, I found a student that was ahead of me, and a cohort that was ahead. He was like 3 months ahead.
Yeah.
Got into the pipe fitters.
Okay.
Came back like a month later. He's like, I'm making $29 an hour. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm a part of that life.
Yeah.
So I followed that path. I opened.
But at that
doors.
moment, you did not know how to be a pipe fitter welder,
Oh,
right?
no, not at
so
all.
when he came back and said, "Hey, I'm making all this dough,"
Yeah.
did you go, "All right, teach me, start.
Yeah.
Where's the pipe?"
So the end of the curriculum, it was a natural progression to get to pipe.
Gotcha.
And then I'm like,
forget
okay,
that.
Yeah, get on pipe. Like, and there's the pipe fitters. They had a school going on, and I could almost line up me finishing my my trade school to get into their school. And I did a 16-week program and the requirement was to get 2 certifications during that 16 weeks. I think within 8 weeks, I had like 4 or 5 certifications. Yeah. I had a background. Like, this was supposed to take people off the street that have never welded before,
yeah,
and get them tuned up for the industry. Because I had background, I could accelerate through it. So they put me to work. First job, I'll never forget this. First job, I was actually working for Daryl's company.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Daryl Peterson,
Daryl
is,
Peterson.
for those of you that watch and know.
I got like $31 an hour.
And you're like, I made it. That's it.
I remember.
I'm retiring next year. Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, 20. And
that's a lot of money at 20.
Dude, I would go to the bank and I like one check would carry me for like 2 months.
I know.
And then like I'd go to the bank and the lady's like, "What do you do for a living?" I'm like, "I'm a welder."
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a good experience, and then a lot of doors opened up at that point.
And how long did you do that?
So that was like an outage job. I've been with the hall for I was actively working in the hall. I'm still with the hall, but I'm an instructor now. I was working 12 years on the road.
Really? So you went from the shop to now pipe fitter on the road for about 12 years.
Yeah.
Now, on the road, does that mean just Florida or like?
I've been everywhere. I've been abroad. I've been throughout the United States.
Really? How did those jobs come abroad being a pipe fitter? Who's like, hey, we need you in whatever? So it was just the company that got those contracts and then they sent you?
So in a roundabout way, I worked in what's called specialty welding. Like we would have to be pretty good regular welders, like general processes, and then we'd have to run like diametric machines, stuff that orbits around pipes that we can weld remotely. With those companies are the ones that do it, that usually train on that. So I'd have to, I had to get my foot in the door, right? So beginning of construction, Augusta, Georgia, had a couple nukes going up. They paid like $27 an hour, which was a pay cut from what I was doing.
Yeah.
But it was my entry into nuclear. And I passed all their gate tests, which were particularly hard to pass. And I worked for the general contractor for 6 months. They were doing a big layoff, but there was a specialty company out there that needed the certs I had. And they gave me the opportunity either getting laid off or rolling over with that company.
I see.
And then once I got it with that company, it was just training. It was all the diametric machines, the oval machines, wire feed processes.
Wow. And so 12 years, because I know you're married with kids. Were you already married when you were on the road?
I've been married at a young age. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So was the wife staying at home while you were doing all this traveling?
She had her own career.
Okay.
She stayed home, worked on her career, and I got around and worked on mine.
Okay, all right. Did you get tired of the traveling? I think I know the answer.
I hated it.
Because we've had this conversation, and I think that's why you do what you do now, because of so much traveling.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm just getting to the point where I want to travel again. I have.
You say where you want to travel again?
Yeah.
But not for
work. No, no, for leisure.
Yeah.
I got to a point where I didn't want to leisurely travel. It was like, let me stay in my own bed for a while.
There you go. I wonder. Yeah, I don't know what that feels like.
Yeah, I know. But all the places I've gone, I had a lot of opportunity at a young age. It was from good attitude.
Got him out of the system, seen it, been
Yeah.
there.
I had the pretty good hand-eye coordination, but more importantly, like I was a man of my word. Like when I said I'd show up, I showed up. Good attitude goes a long way.
That is so true.
If you're cancerous or like a tumor to a crew, and especially when you run small crews,
That's it.
It just brings the morale down.
You get blacklisted, and it's only one time, and you never get repeat anything.
I want to work around that. I want to laugh. I want to joke around. I want to have a good time.
Life is too short, man. I mean, you could work 15 hours, and if you have a good crew, a good partner, whatever, it feels like nothing. I can't wait to do it again. Yeah, you're physically tired.
Sure.
But mentally, you're like, that was fun.
Right, and half the time the jobs that we got weren't fun. We were there for a reason. Like it wasn't because, it was in the middle of a room and it was an easy well. We got it was the challenging stuff.
It's one of those you stand behind the thing and you're like, I wonder how the hell we're gonna do that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the great structure of that was management looked at it and go, how are they gonna do that?
Right.
And then we would practice. We'd actually practice it.
That's how they did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And I found an opportunity, and I don't regret it. And the truth is like I made a lot of money doing it, but it was never a money drive. Like,
correct.
It was a passion. It was I chased welding, and now not to let the cat out the bag, but I teach now.
Correct. He beat me to it. I usually have a way of going to my. We're done. Thank you guys for watching.
But when I was stepping out of the field and going to teach, it was like the challenges of the day was what kept me going. Was the motivation.
Exactly.
Completely different motivation.
But now, since you brought it up, you are a teacher where, and what exactly are you teaching?
I gotcha. I am a welding instructor at Marchman Technical College,
Which is?
a local technical college here in Newport Richey, Florida.
Okay. And how long have you been doing that?
I started the program 6 years ago.
And 6 years ago, so 6.5 years ago, a couple of months right before you got that job and started that program, were you doing the pipe fitting?
Yeah.
So it went from that you already had something lined up, somebody called you, how did that come about?
This is a story in itself. Me and my wife, a little bit before I started teaching, we decided we wanted something different in life.
Okay.
So I started working for a local company,
Okay.
servicing power plants in Central Florida.
Gotcha.
We were doing a hot weld in Fort Gaines,
Okay.
which is in the middle of nowhere, Florida. It's cattle country and mining country.
We have cows here in Florida.
Yes, we
people,
do.
Just so you know. Yeah.
And I got hit with 480 volts.
Oof.
Yeah. It was from the preheat machine. We were doing an alloy that you had to bring it up to, I think it was 400 degrees or 450.
To melt?
No, to bring it up to a temperature so it so while you're welding it everything moves together so you don't get any cracking.
Gotcha.
And then they do what's called baking it. They have to keep the hydrogen out of it. Anyways, without going into the Mellor side of that. I'm laying on my belly doing a mirror weld, and all of a sudden I wake up and my shirt's burnt, almost off.
So you woke up because you were in a coma whatever time that was?
I think I got hit, and I think maybe a second.
Passed out?
Yeah, I passed out for maybe 10 seconds or so. No real concept of time on
Gotcha.
that one, but there was, if I had to show us, there was 4 holes in the top of the boiler.
Yeah.
And I'm over in this hole, and we have one hole watching, checking everyone.
Yeah.
And I'm 5 feet down, so nothing super deep in there.
Yeah.
And I popped up, and I'm a big boy. I knew I was
From the shock?
From the shock. I popped up, stood on one of there's a crossover,
Yeah.
so it gets me a couple of feet up, so I can start climbing out. I look up at my working partner. I'm like, dude, I just got shocked. He sees my shirt burnt, and I'm like, Now all I know is I'm crawling out. My oldest son at the time was 8 months old,
Oof.
and so I'm.
So that was a wake-up call?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for
That
sure.
was an alarm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the kicker of that. So I get down. There's an elevator. I get to the elevator. Paramedics show up and everything. But I'm starting to feel. It took them a while because we're in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm starting to feel okay. I'm like, I'm coming to. They check my vitals. They're like, we have to take you to the hospital. I'm like, I'm probably fine. And then the guy's like, are you refusing? I'm like, I don't really know. My foreman's over there. Go. I'm like, well, I'm going. So we go, and on the way back, I'm like, I've been talking to paramedics. I'm like, I really don't think I need to go, guys. And then he's checking vitals and stuff still, and he's like, well, if you have anything to say to anyone, you need to probably say it. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, when someone gets hit with that kind of voltage, we have to test for a certain chemical in your system, and it's an indicator that you're going to die. We don't know if you have 5 minutes or 48 hours.
Well, that's a nice conversation to have.
So my wife's 2 hours away with an 8-month-old baby. Do you think I was going to make that phone call? I couldn't. I made a note in my phone.
So you made a note, kind of expressing, or just
whatever I had to say, I said it in that note.
Really?
And,
did you actually send that text?
No.
It was just for someone to find it if something happened.
Yeah, if I sent that text, she would have.
Yeah.
Righteously, so
All right. Does she knows that note was written?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if she watches this, sorry, it just came out.
Yeah.
But he was prepared. Well, I'm glad that you never got to send that.
So, anyway, after that, we were already going in one direction as a family. That just kind of cemented what we were going to do, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I wasn't going back.
Gotcha.
I'm like, we've done pretty good financially. I'm going to slow down.
Yeah.
And I pull up Indeed and just see what's out there. And a technical college that's 1.2 miles from my house is looking for a welding instructor.
When the signs and the stars align, what do you say?
Yeah.
So they had a position, you saw it, you applied right away, or you kind of like, should I?
I applied right away, and I put everything in, and I get a call for in-person meeting and interview. And every time I've been in, I'm pretty good talk. I can talk to people.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've ever interviewed for somebody, and I felt I bombed.
You froze?
Oh, I didn't freeze. The old director of the college, that guy should play poker. He gets no emotion. And I'm like, and I can usually get people to
right? Something.
Yeah, it's something to crack up a little bit. Nothing. And I'm like, I got home and I told my wife, I'm like, well,
that sucked.
I bombed that one. And a couple of days later, the director of the college, his name's Rob Ages, calls me and goes, Mr. Logaglio, I want to inform you that we're looking to move forward with you. As long as everything checks out and your background and all that, just want to let you know. I'm like,
and you're like, what does that mean?
And I'm like, I look at him, or I look at my phone, I'm like, Mr. Ages, I thought that interview went terrible. Okay, I'm like, I'm excited, but he kind of chuckled and he's like, why do you say that? And I'm like, I don't know.
It's not me, it's you.
I couldn't tell him at that point.
Right,
later on, I was able to tell him, but everything fell in place. They're starting a program from scratch.
So they were hiring a welding instructor because they didn't have a program before.
They never had a program before.
I see. So you are A to Z in this program.
Yeah, so this has been, they had some influence from another institution to set up the building before I became involved.
I see.
But as far as a curriculum or starting a program, I was the first one to ever do it for Pasco County Schools.
So now you had gone to a welding school yourself as a student.
Yep.
Now you become an instructor. Now you have to put a curriculum together. Now you got to do all these things. What was the hardest thing? Was it teaching or the paperwork?
Oh, it's 100% the paperwork.
I kind of knew the answer.
There's a lot of bureaucracy and political nature of education.
Correct.
And especially at the level I'm at. But I work for a technical college, which is usually attached to a K-12 entity. I honestly believe those are the most valuable welding programs in the country. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Like for a very reasonable cost, and like we're not money driven, we're not profit driven, we're student driven.
Gotcha.
And within the realm of what we're doing, I think it's the most wholesome version of a welding school. There is like for a while, like I had a personal problem with like for profit, but now I see some people doing some for profit that are actually have a good mindset. Like they're in it for like they're making
For the
money,
right reasons,
but they're also care about their
Yeah,
kids.
there's nothing wrong with making money.
No.
Everyone has the right to make a living the right way.
Right.
And there's the right way and the wrong way. But there's both out there,
Right. Oh, for
unfortunately,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you got these big house welding schools out there, and you test their students, or they come out and you're like, "What were you using? Gum?" Like,
Right. Oh, yeah, for
it's,
sure.
It's unfortunate because it just becomes a money pit.
Yeah. Not to throw any shade or name out, but like I had a young lady that came from another school, and she's $30,000 in debt from it, and didn't have any marketable skills. Now she's working as a union millwright after she went to my school. She got with the millwrights. I think she's making $40 an hour now.
Yeah, it's and I think when someone starts from scratch, of course they don't know anything about anything to compare anything.
Right.
So they'll go to one school and I'm great.
Right.
So they think.
Right.
Then they get exposed to something or a job or another school and go like, I'm not even close to knowing what I should be knowing.
And we have entities like Matt Bartles and other
People in the
Peterson,
industry. Yeah, correct.
that feed input into the program so we can change our curriculum to feed into what they need.
The specifics.
Yeah,
That's all.
without getting too narrow
And getting too outside of the norm
Right.
of the school.
But if I have a student that identifies that they want to go this direction, we can alter what we're going to do. And
That's awesome.
As long as they have an opportunity to do it too.
Of course.
Like, you got to follow opportunity.
That's pretty cool. And changing subjects for a little bit because I always do this. How old are your kids? Because I met them
4 and 6.
4 and 6.
Yeah.
And do they know what you do? Do they know that you're a welder? And do they understand what that is?
No, like a little bit. Like my oldest, he was sick one day, and I had to go in for a little bit to work, and I brought him with me. Yeah. He's like, "You're a teacher," And then he he's a really shy kid. But then he realized like they're all my students, and he's like, he wants to be like, "Hey, sit down."
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had fun with it, but no, I don't know. They're kind of young.
No, I get it. It's just because every once in a while, you see that a spark gets on someone, and right away they want to start asking questions, and it's one of those things that you just never know.
Sure, my 4-year-old, my 6-year-old's like, all right, that's cool. My 4-year-old's like, I want to go to the shop with you, Daddy. I'm like, all right, cool, let's go.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Yeah.
And how long have you been married?
Oh, Lord.
Oh.
I think 2009.
Okay. So since 2009?
Yeah.
Whatever that is. I can't do that math right now. It's too early for me.
I know that because there's a sign by my pool that says, since 2009. If I didn't have that sign, I think I'd forget.
Sorry. I put him on the spot.
Yeah.
At the school level, now that you have been a teacher for 6 years, following a curriculum that you helped build, but still under the guidelines of what the school system...
Department of Education,
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest misconception on what comes down from the school level to what really happens or should happen?
Well, the governing body of us, the K-12 realm, it is really like they want to see they don't want you to do like participation grades or like not how do I adjust this to say it politically correct. They want to base my grading off of like their testing, not their effort.
I see.
And the industry doesn't. The effort has to be as equal as the testing.
Correct.
You can't underperform but test well.
And anyone can test well one time or
Right.
here or there, but effort, it's either you got to have it on all the time
Right.
or you don't have it on all the time.
My industry is pretty strict with stuff. Like,
Really?
if you're new and you show up late, they'll find someone else to pay $30 an hour or better. It's that your replacement's a phone call away. So
Yeah.
don't give them a reason to replace you. So we, because I have my umbrella of our accreditation,
Gotcha.
I can navigate that situation.
Yeah.
But that's not what they want me to do.
Got it.
The other side of it is curriculum moves at a snail's pace. Like relevancy is archaic in a lot of what we get,
Got it.
and that's getting somewhat better. But I don't know where they're taking their samples from per se.
Yeah.
And then what? A couple of years ago, we have what's called CAPE funding, where someone can get a certification, and then the state kind of pays us, gives us like a bonus.
Gotcha.
For them doing it, and it's like a workforce incentive.
Gotcha.
But the certifications that they give us a list of what that would qualify for that. Those certifications are very they don't support my community.
I see.
And like when I look at this stuff and it's depicted to me from the state, and I have to live in that world, and I'm like, where do they get this information from? And then it's very hard to track down the sources of their thought process. And here's the other side of that. Not to cut you off.
No, not at all.
But they're giving us tests that we can give our students, AWS tests that don't exist.
All right, hold on. Because what do you mean by that?
So CAPE funding certification. One was a gas metal arc welding, which is MIG welding. It's a straight term. Under D1.1. The way it was written originally looked like you wanted a short arc MIG process under D1.1. There's no pre-qualified procedure under AWS for that.
So it's almost looks like it was never updated, or it was written in a way that it's not.
And so
yeah.
So I called the state. I'm like, what do you want us to do?
Yeah.
And they're like, call AWS. And I call AWS, and AWS, their statement was, we just advise the state on what to do. The state makes the rules. And it was.
All right, got it.
And,
so
there's one other one on there that.
all we're saying that things are not perfect, and they can definitely get better.
For sure.
But this is why we need the instructors and the teachers to give that feedback, and that feedback needs to be taken into account.
Absolutely.
It's just, a lot of these things were written, and some of it it's getting updated, or some of it was written with somebody else's terminology, and it just goes through the cracks, and nobody wants to raise their hands and shake anything. It's like, whatever, let's just, yeah.
I can accomplish a lot in the realm in the rules that they gave me. And I'm sure I could be more proactive to get on a committee to do something.
But it's work.
Yeah.
It's work.
There's only so many hour days.
I get it. Now, you mentioned community a couple of minutes ago. Mm-hmm. How many students do you go through your cycle, your semesters, and how do you get students in? Because this is a smaller area of Florida. So do you find yourself that sometimes your semesters are weak on attendance because, or
No. I have 14 spots coming up for August, and we had 120 people show up.
Where the hell are these people coming from?
All in the community, because there's never been a welding program in this community.
I see.
And now it's an outlet for people.
What's the age group?
Honestly, right out of high school, we'll say 18 to 22 is very common. I'll have some 30-year-olds every once in a while, and
How many girls usually?
It's usually a small percentage. I usually have 2 to 4 in the class at any given time.
Which processes are the females better than the guys usually?
All of them. Yeah. The attention to detail and
Yeah, there's a reason why I ask, because I hear that all the time,
Yeah.
and for the company I worked for, it was the same thing. There were certain things that they would do
For sure.
that we just couldn't hack it. You know,
Right.
guys,
Oh, yeah.
we just suck at it. It is what it is.
I learned this in a class. You know, in education, you're always taking a class on something, and a female's eye has a broader spectrum of light, so it means they can see like colors. So if you're ever like trying to paint a wall with your wife, and you're like, "Oh, that's just yellow," and she's like, "No, it's cream," and you're like,
Well, I'm kind of colorblinded, so anyone could be better than me at that.
so it gives them a natural advantage
Makes sense. Makes sense.
and their demeanor.
That is so true. They can be taught.
Yeah.
You know, where we're like, I know this.
Stubbornness and
God, we suck.
pride.
You are also a brand ambassador for a couple of brands out there. And you also have, which is on the chalkboard right there, Bingo Welding. I don't know if you can see it, but that's his.
Probably can't read it.
Yeah, because he wrote it. You
Yeah.
know, I would have done so much
It
better.
would have been so
but
much nicer.
I know. What is it to become an ambassador, and what's the power of social media? What has social media done for you? It's a two-part.
Oh, I know. How do I answer that? The ambassadorship, and we had this conversation. And it's like I will only align with companies that I believe in. Honestly, and ambassadorships can be kind of a dirty thing. Like you can make a post for a free sticker or free gloves or something like, and it's not really what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be you aligning with a company that your values or you like their product or their values or both, and you try to support them in their efforts of moving forward. We're all trying to move forward in some way, shape, or form. The reason I got into it, a couple of buddy of mine kind of drugged me into it. But once I got into it, I use it for my students. Like I use it for the exposure because you brought up young ladies. Like on the surface, I look a certain like I don't look approachable. We'll say that. And then when I do stuff like this, or when I'd be on YouTube, they see my demeanor, and now I'm a little bit more approachable. And I'm human. We're human. Like, don't be scared. Everyone makes mistakes. Like, come on in. There's plenty of room for everyone.
Definitely. No, I think the same way, and that's the reason why. Because when I met you a few years ago, it was at an event in Tampa through a friend of ours, Jason Becker. I needed some help, and he threw two names at me right away. It was you and Matt, and Now I see why he threw those names at me. It's the person. It's who you guys are, and it's good to have guys like you and call them friends in the industry now because of what you bring to the table, the knowledge, your demeanor, and everything else. So I'm honored that I met you through another friend, and now we are here doing this conversation, having this conversation for Torch Tales. We're almost done. What would you say that you would like to see in the welding industry as a whole in the next few years? If there was one thing that, I wish we did this or didn't do this.
I don't know. When I started, there's some people that my generation might feel the same way. And when I started, it wasn't warm and fuzzy. It was like you had the old man that's setting you up for failure if you're a dumb kid or
of course
I want these doors to be open. I want people to come into this world because it's been fantastic for me. It's put a hamburger on my table for my family since I had a family, and and a little bit more to put in the bank. And I want people to have that opportunity. It's hard working for an educational entity right now. It's not right. It's not fair, and there's been plenty of times I've been close to quitting. And then I get a text from one of my old students that like, hey, I just bought my first house, or, I just had my first kid, and
it's hard not to get goosebumps and feel like, all right, it's worth it.
Oh yeah, and I was talking about I was worried about the challenge of my old job, and then I came to this, and
New challenges.
new challenges and a whole nother level. Like I don't get compensated monetarily, but there's other pay that I get that, you know, you're doing something for the world. You're doing something for people, individuals, to better their life. I want, back to your question, I want this industry, and it's going that direction, to be a home for everyone. Like, I don't care what you look like. I don't care anything about you.
Yeah.
Welcome home, you know?
Guys, there's no way I could have closed this conversation with a better quote and a better saying. Just welcome home. Guys, Brian, thank you so much, brother, for
Thank you.
allowing me to have this conversation with you. And guys, this is what this whole thing is all about. Just seeing someone else's path into the industry, and if he can be in it, if I can be in it, is exactly what he just said. Welcome home. This is a great industry, and I hope you guys like the content. And keep watching, keep supporting the channel, because it's for you guys, and I love doing what I do. Take care. See you soon.
Thank you.